No more long lunches. M. 26 thirds road shift team lead. Edit. I should clarify that we clock out for lunch. Which means it's an unpaid time period, so any extra time I take on lunch doesn't count towards paid time. Sorry y'all. So about a month or so ago, I was pulled into the office by my supervisor and another one, acting as a witness. The main topic at hand was that I would take an extra 20 to 30 minutes on lunch every day. Personal decision that I've been doing for 6 years now. When I explained I would do this to kill some of my OT, and was saving the company about 2 to 3 hours of time and a half pay, it didn't matter to my supervisor. He stated that I needed to be more punctual because he needs me on the floor. Okay, that's understandable. I followed up with, well, does that mean since I show up on time every day, I get to go home on time every day? He didn't like that question since he just got through telling us at the beginning of the night how everything needs to be done before we leave. So he put it in the system under my work profile that we had that conversation and that he knows I can do better. Quote, oh, I did better. Fast forward to last week. It's been almost a month of 1-hour lunches only, and still staying late to finish off the work from the night. My paycheck was the biggest I've seen since I took this position a little more than a year ago. I was excited, and I knew why it was that big. Unfortunately for my supervisors, they got into some heat for how much OT I earned over the last month. Needless to say, they were directed to address us three about how we can't get any OT anymore and that we need to work our schedules as they are. My other supervisor said, y'all can take a longer lunch to help cut down OT. I jumped in immediately and stated that I would not be taking any longer lunches because I was formally sat down for a conversation regarding that matter. Straight up refused to do it, and the one who gave me that conversation just stared at me. Man, it's felt super awesome to say that to them. And for them to realize I was doing them a favor this whole time. I actually got sent home early today because I've already accrued a day's worth of OT. TLDR. I consistently cut OT by taking a longer lunch. Gets told not to do it anymore by a supervisor. Sticks to 1-hour lunches and gets a crazy amount of OT. Supervisors inform us to cut OT because we earn too much of it. Suggests taking longer lunches. I blatantly refuse since I was scolded for it before. Justification. Sounds like what happened to me in retail. Supervisor. Oh no. It's looking like we aren't going to be able to finish this area before the end of the shift. Can you stay late to help? Quote. Me. Sure. But you know I'm full-time and that will put me in overtime. Right? Quote. Supervisor. Yeah, it's fine. We really need this done, so please stay over to help. They've let me keep my overtime pay before. Usually around holidays when they were desperate for help. So I agreed thinking I'd get a nice paycheck. 2 days later, the day before the pay period ends, supervisor pulls me aside and says, hey, so, you know you've got an hour of overtime, right? We need to lose that by the end of the day. And we can't let you leave early because we need you until the end of the shift. So can you just take a long lunch instead? Quote. Me. You want me to sit in the break room for 2 hours instead of just letting me leave early? And you said I could keep the overtime. That's why I agreed to stay. Supervisor. The store manager unfortunately didn't approve it. So we need you to lose it today. The long lunch is perfect, so you're still in the building if we need you. Me. But I won't technically be available. I'll be clocked out for lunch. Supervisor. Just take the long lunch today for me. Please. Me. Alright, but never ask me to stay late or come in early again. If I don't get to keep the overtime, I'm not wasting my personal time. Skip ahead to the middle of my 2-hour long lunch break. Supervisor comes into the break room and says, "Hey, we've got a customer that needs help out here. Can you take care of them?" Quote, me. Nope. I'm on lunch. And if you talk to me about work again while I'm off the clock, I'm filling out a time adjustment form. If I'm off the clock, I'm not working. Cue look of shock and annoyance from supervisor as she stomps out of the break room to take care of the customer herself. Skip ahead a few weeks. Supervisor, "Hey, we need you to stay late tonight. Someone called off." Me. Nope. If I don't get to keep the overtime, I'm not staying late. Supervisor, "But we need you. Everyone else said no. You usually help us. I thought you wanted to get promoted to supervisor soon?" Quote, me. Yes, I do. But I'm not giving up my personal time without being paid for it. This is a job. If I work, I get paid. End of discussion. They tried this a few more times. Each time they were more and more frustrated that I wouldn't help them again. They eventually convinced a few people to do that long lunch nonsense. To the point where some people had 3-hour-long lunches. Which was leading to the reason why things weren't getting done if people were sitting in the break room for half of their shift. I don't miss that store at all. They want it both ways. At my old company, the service coordinator told us no more overtime. On Wednesday afternoon, 2 of us told him, "See you Monday." He got indignant. "What do you think you're doing?" We told him we already had 40 hours and we're going home for the weekend. That policy got changed almost immediately. Every time I see this issue, all I can think is, they need to schedule better. That is it. They are not, in any way, shape, or form, accounting for close-down procedures. Sounds to me like they schedule everyone till whatever time is close, but not accounting for what happens between closing time and people actually going home. I worked in a retail store that had close-down procedures that took a minimum of 45 minutes and averaged about 55 minutes. Rarely would it go for an hour. These procedures took 3 people, and 3 were usually there till close. We ran into this issue of Corp stating too much and no OT. So, I suggested the manager schedule us for 1 hour past close to handle the end of day shit. It was a simple scheduling update where we would come in 1 hour later. Everyone rejoiced as full-timers were actually hitting 40 hours and leaving. And those on part-time saw additional hours. Plus, those who closed never hit OT again. It's really not a hard thing to solve. Used to work at a grocery store as the receiver. As the receiver, it is my duty to handle all incoming deliveries, organize and clean the back room, deal with scanning out damaged, out-of-date product, printing and delivering reports of departmental deliveries, marking down out-of-set, discontinued product, and also have to put out the bread delivery that came in. Now that the responsibilities have been said, let's get on to the crux of why it's relevant to this post. As you can imagine, doing all of these things can result in a hectic day, and it did. Constantly going from the bread aisle to the back room for vendor deliveries is not fun. But the thing that was lowest priority was the markdowns of discontinued product. The store at one point discontinued Kool-Aid packets. Each box contained 48 packets. Shelf holds 6 boxes in a row. 5 shelves of it, 8 wide. That's over 11,000 packets that each needed to be individually snickered a markdown sticker. Each roll of stickers was 476 stickers. It took almost 23 whole rolls of stickers to print enough of them. But remember, I not only had to print each one but also place them on the product. This resulted in the grocery manager trying to yell at me for having hella overtime because, you can't have overtime, so I didn't. Then less than a month later, he tries yelling at me for not finishing everything on my daily list of duties. Markdowns was all that was left. And so I told him that he can't have both. It's either I make everything look good and all done, or I don't get overtime. Pick one. Also, another manager we had once tried yelling at me for clocking out 7 minutes early. We had a 7-minute window leeway, so I asked if she was gonna stop me from starting 7 early. She stopped pestering me after that. Why are you doing long lunches? To cut overtime. You cannot do long lunches anymore. Okay, you are having a lot of overtime. Do long lunches. No. Pikachu face. What did they think was going to happen? I will be happy to take longer lunches to burn OT. But I'll need 3 things to happen before I start doing that. 1. You'll need to remove that unfortunate coaching write-up regarding me taking long lunches to burn OT from my file. If it's the right thing to do now, then it must have been the right thing to do then. 2. Have both those supervisors that wrote me up for doing the right thing write me a formal apology for writing me up in the first place. I'll need 2 copies from each. One for my HR file, the other for me to take home. 3. Written confirmation that this is now the policy. I'll need a couple copies of that. 2. One needs to be posted here so everyone knows what the formal policy is. The other I need to take home to add to my growing collection. Quote. Oh yeah, I don't blame you at all. At one job I had, they would purposefully schedule UW less hours so they could call you in and send you home early a different time. I started flat out refusing to stay late or come in on my off days. You want me to stay late, come in early, schedule me to. Lo and behold, a month later, we had better schedules. Good for you. I'm complying with your instructions. Stop doing that. I'm old and I used to be like you. I worked as an RN in L&D. The number of times I had no mealtime and worked overtime because the babies were coming and their moms needed us was ridiculous. Of course, none of us claimed the loss of the mealtime or the extra 15 to 30 minutes at the end of the shift. We were professionals, being paid hourly. I left for a more flexible job by the time I had 3 kids of my own and a potentially deadly outcome after my 3rd C-section. That was just before the local hospitals refused to give more than a token raise. After multiple years of double-digit inflation. Thanks, Reagan. The particular hospital I had worked at? In the 2 years of the contract, they'd hired 2 new upper-level management at roughly 5 times what the RNs made. Word came down. No more than 10% OT. Every single one of us worked 50 to 60 weeks. Loved the work. Loved working with the customer. I'm older and smarter now. Okay, fine. Everyone on my team reworked our schedules and timelines for our projects. Customer was not happy. Every schedule was now 25 to 50% longer. Management, surprised face. Can you reduce the project time? Quote. Not without more OT. Can you, just do it? You mean work off the books? How will the company charge the customer for our time? Quote. Well, get back to you. Never did. Other than the every 4-month Bungie boss changeover asking the same questions. When I had an hourly rate as a software engineer, I loved participating in hackathons for work. My company, pre-COVID, would hold them periodically and employees would form teams and build out as much as they could of something within 24 hours. Literally just in a big room together for 24 hours, and they bring food, coffee, whatever. I mean, you can obviously leave any time and step out to use the restroom or whatever, but yeah. You work all day and night and then present to the judges the next morning. Winning team could get anywhere from $5,000 each to potentially $25,000 plus having their work shifted to building new thing full-time for the company. Boot. Your hourly, in CA at least, is 1.5x after 8 hours and 2x after 12 hours. So clocking a 24-hour shift for the hackathon. Did I mention you get a free day off after to recover? Basically got you a whole week of extra pay. It was a nice way to stack a few thousand extra, let alone if you won. Edit. Relevant 2022 updates. https:/www.dir.ca.gov/oprl/computersoftware.htm. Solution to not having too much OT. Go home when shift is down. Their solution. Clock out and stay longer. Smart. I am not following you about how getting back to work half an hour earlier would still have you finishing work at the same time as before. Ah, that warm, tingling feeling I get when reading that for once supervisor's manager have to lie in the uncomfortable bed they made for themselves. Grin. A buddy of mine was sat down by his manager in HR and told that he was in trouble because he'd gone over 40 hours the previous week, which wasn't allowed. When he replied that he'd worked the hours he'd been scheduled and asked if they wanted him to skip shifts, they said no. He pointed out that he was scheduled for over 40 hours that week, and they told him he had better not work over 40 hours. So he asked if that meant he was going to need to skip his last 2 shifts that week. He was told of course not, and that if he did that he'd be in trouble. He'd been scheduled, so he needed to be there. Well, if I work them I'll be over 40 hours. That's bad. Don't do that. He left very shortly thereafter. The only conclusion I can reach is that they wanted him to show up, but magically, not generate hours for his shift somehow. I used to work with someone who was a victim of this. He was about to take lunch in his office when the CEO called a meeting. My coworker was obviously hungry, because you can't skip lunch. So he was forced to sneak a hot dog into the conference room in his sleeve. He had to pretend to be tired so he could put his head down and take clandestine bites of the hot dog. Obviously everyone knew what was going on, and he panicked and started to choke on the hot dog. The CEO saved him, but fired him a month later for poor performance, but we all knew the real reason. If I were you, I would keep claiming overtime or go home on time. Really. This place sounds understaffed. They either need to pay more or hire more. Their choice. Pardon my thick skull. I fail to see how taking a longer lunch equals less overtime. Is there a task that pushes you into overtime because you cannot leave before it's done but you cannot start till after closing?
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.